Welcome to Business Leader Breakthroughs, where we help unlock the potential in you, your teams, and your business. I'm your host, Ryan Castle, along with Dr. Mike Ashby. We'll share insights, experiences, and stories on achieving breakthrough success in business and life. To learn more, click the link in the episode show notes or go to thebreakthrough.co. Now let the breakthroughs begin. Hey, Mike, great to have you on the podcast for us to dive into it's a topic that maybe feels like it's become an epidemic in society these days, and that's the big word of stress.
Yeah.
Now, I think we should start with, certainly it's my personal perception is that I feel like in society now, stress is something that should be avoided at all costs and no one should ever be stressed. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think actually periods of high performance often come with some level of stress. And if you understand how to manage stress, and that's really what we're talking about here, managing stress, not completely avoiding it or getting rid of it entirely, is that it can be actually a very powerful thing. Now, I completely acknowledge that too much stress can have dire consequence to your personal health, to relationships, all of those things. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that chronic stress is a good thing at all. I'm saying moments of stress can actually help lead to high performance. What's your kind of take on that?
Oh, definitely. And that's not new. I always distinguish between pressure, which is good, and stress, which is bad. So I just keep it really simple. And I think pressure is essential. Pressure to perform. If you don't feel pressure, then you don't really raise yourself. You don't really have that adrenaline you're just not really paying full attention. And we've just come through a period in the business of enormous pressure, bordering on stress. But I look at it and I go, no, we didn't. I don't think there might have been short periods where we felt the stress, but I think we managed to keep it at the very top of the pressure continuum. There's the Yerkes-Dodson pressure stress thing relating to performance, and it's an arc, an upside down U. And basically, if you on one side of it is performance, and the other side of it is, if you like, anxiety. And at low anxiety or low pressure, performance is low, and they just keep going up. Pressure increases, performance increases. You go through the kind of, the chill part, which is all very relaxed. And then you're in the thrill bit, which is, okay, the pressure's on, but your performance is up. But then you hit a point at which your performance starts to decline on the other side. And that's when you kind of go, we've got chill, thrill, pill, because that's what you're going to need to manage the stress. And then you end up all stress, underperformance, and that's when people go postal. So that last one is kill. That's not what Yerkes-Dodson said. That's my kind of overlay on it, to be fair. And doesn't matter. It was done in 1908, and they're both dead, so that's all good.
And I like your one. It's so poetic.
Yeah, I reckon. There's at least a rap song in there somewhere. That'll be funny. So I think you've got to have some pressure to perform. We were just talking this morning about the extraordinary result we had from that focus. We exceeded the target, which was at the time we thought, oh my God, I don't know how we're going to do this. We exceeded it by 50%. And it was, as we all said, it was because we were so focused. And that's because we were under real pressure to get this done. So 100% agree with you. As a very experienced public speaker, I still feel a tingling of pressure and anxiety when I get on my hind legs to speak, even informally. I still feel that kind of that sudden kind of switch, and I know I would do a very average job if that didn't happen. So yes, pressure good, stress bad.
Like it. Good distinction there. And I think one of the things that really helps me in those times of pressure is getting very clear on what the plan is. So if you spend your entire time wallowing around in the, oh my God, I'm feeling so much pressure and there's so much to do. If we break that down into okay, I'm clear on the plan, the two things I can do today to help progress us towards where we're going are A and B. I'm just going to get those two things done. That really helps me when I'm clear on my plan and I can chunk it down, eat the elephant one bite at a time, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think what often happens is that I know for myself when I get stressed, and it does happen, absolutely it happens. If I get stressed at work, it's because my head is full of the things I've got to do. And it's the noise, stress is purely internal. It's not really external. It's purely how you respond to it, which is why two people respond quite differently to the same external stimulus. So what I know I need to do when I feel myself going into what my wife calls my headless chook mode, is write it all down, get it all out. And then I can see what's been rattling around in my brain is on paper, and it's going, oh, well, that's actually not so bad. And right, which of those is the most important? Exactly as you say, what are the must-dos? What are my rocks, if you like, the things that I simply must get done for either urgency or importance? And then I can just kind of start working my way through.
Nice. So if someone is feeling stressed, they feel like they're under a lot of pressure, maybe they themselves are in headless chook mode, running around, doing a lot of activity, not maybe achieving a whole lot, but not feeling great about it either. How can they think about what would be the first step they should think about in that moment when they catch themselves going, you know what, I do feel pretty stressed at the moment?
I think that's the very first and most important thing, is catching yourself, is to be able to spot your own stress signals, because stress is one of those things. It's like the water temperature just keeps increasing until the frog is boiled and never felt a thing.
Like,
So, yeah, and catching yourself and going, hang on, I am, I've got the symptoms that I know relate to stress. My jaw is tight, my neck is tight, my breathing is shallow. Yeah, and my one is definitely the kind of, I'm breathing in my chest and I'm sighing a lot. That's a classic case of prolonged stress where I'm just not catching my breath. Irritability, not that I'm aware of that, but people around me let me know that, hey, is everything okay? Or you need to slow down or whatever. So all of those things tell me, okay, I've gone over the line, that red line between pressure and stress. And then in very particular, in moments of deep stress that happen where you're about to do something, or something's happened to you or whatever, and you just need to slow the hell down. We use a system called BEAT, which is, the B stands for breathe. So it's stopping and taking 5 deep breaths into your diaphragm, into your belly, low and slow, as they call it, goes, and you have your hand on your belly and you let it out slowly, and you start with count to 5 in, 5 out, and then 6 in, and then 6 out. And you're just slowing your body down, because your body, full of adrenaline, is feeding your mind, and you're getting this nasty kind of stress spiral where it's just all going south very quickly. And then the E stands for experience, and it's kind of just going in to go, okay, there it is. There's this feeling. I recognize this. I'm experiencing stress. My heart rate's up. My thoughts are racing. I'm in it. I'm in it right here. And that runs into the accept, which is the A, which is, that's okay. That's okay. This is how it feels, is the phrase I use. This is how it feels to be trying to do too much at once. This is how it feels to be about to go into an interview for a critical job promotion. The acceptance of how you feel is how you let it go. Eckhart Tolle talks about that which you resist grows, that which you accept you move beyond, that which you resist grows stronger. And I've certainly experienced that in my life. I had surgery about this time years ago, and I had post-surgery anxiety and very morbid thoughts and depressed and all that kind of stuff, and stressed with it, very stressed. And I read that book, and I can remember thinking, this is how it feels to be recovering from major surgery. And that alone just took me off the hook. It said, you're not, because there's stuff that goes on about why do I feel like this? Or why am I not more in control? What, no, no, no. You're having this big fight with yourself. Dude, this is how it feels. This is exactly how it feels. Oh, okay. This is how it feels. And then when you've got to that, you've come down off that peak, and then you can transition and you can start to think about, okay, so what is going okay? What am I grateful for? All of those sorts of things, which are the next step. Just this is, I think the other one that comes in there is, I can't remember who said it, but remind yourself, I am not my thoughts. Oh, that might be Eckhart Tolle as well, I think. Yeah, I am not my thoughts. I'm more than that. So that's the beep thing. We use it, and people tell us it works for them too. It's a nice, simple, catch yourself, start your breathing, lean into is another way of saying it. Lean into the feeling, acceptance, and then transition.
I like it. And a really great example of getting some context around accepting and the experience that you're having. My wife's manager, a long time ago, they were working in a marketing agency, and of course, things go wrong as they do in any business. And his phrase when he saw his team freaking out and stressing and worrying about how they were going to comps to the customer, etc., was, "Is anyone going to die here?"
I'm going to die.
Now, I realize that's not relevant in all situations. For medical professionals in the ER, that's probably not a great question to ask. But in the context of like he could see his team getting stressed and freaking out. It's like, actually, let's bring some context to the situation. Yes, let's acknowledge we're feeling stressed, but actually, no one's going to die here. This is, someone's got the wrong letter sent to them in the post. It's probably not going to end the world.
Yeah,
But context is helpful.
And that's part of another technique that's really useful. In fact, a lot of this is about the same thing, which is directing your attention, because typically stress happens when you ruminate over something that is emotionally upsetting. That's the classic definition of stress. And you think about it over and over and over again, and you can't get your head out of it. You can't get your mind off it. It's just, a fixation. That's because, so your attention is 100% focused on that. The trick is to distract yourself, to divert your attention away from that. So you've got to catch yourself in that moment of stress, know what your stress signals are. And when you've done that, you can then distract yourself with some grounding questions like that one. That's a great example of, is anybody going to die here? Oh, wait, no, I don't think so. Or, how important is this in the scheme of things? Will I care about this in 6 months' time? That kind of good grounding questions. And what you're doing, in a sense, stress is, your mind is full of these thoughts that are racing like wagon trains across the plains, and it's just non-stop, one after another. And when you divert your attention, you take control and go, hang on, stop the race. We're just going to have a think about, is somebody going to die, or is this going to be important in 3 months? So your conscious mind interrupts your unconscious flow, and that's how you arrest the stress. I used to do this with my son. He used to ask me to coach him on this. He'd have trouble getting to sleep. He's only 8 or 9 or something, and we had this thing where I'd say to him, so tell me about what's in your mind. What are your thoughts? So he said, oh, they're racing across there, like trains. And I said, okay. In between the trains, and I got this from Bruce Ross, my friend Bruce Ross, and I said, in between the trains, what's there? And he said, well, there's nothing. And I said, what does that sound like? You just go into that space there. And I say, yeah, it's quiet. Yeah. And his trains, the kind of the 37 Thomas the Tank Engines sort of stopped at that point. He was able to find this kind of this quiet space, which is, directing your attention. Direct your attention to a quiet place where you can hear yourself think. We can do that with our minds. It's an incredible thing.
I really love that. And I think another version of that is in a work context, when we look at the to-do list and we've got a million things on the go, simply acknowledging that there are more things to do than we have time to do them in. Acknowledge that one first, and then go, okay, which is the one I should give my attention to for the next 5 minutes, 50 minutes, 5 hours, whatever the appropriate time frame is, and then give yourself permission to just focus on that one thing and let go of the others until that one is complete, and then we can reassess the situation. But knowing that trying
Yeah,
to think about and execute all 20 things on the to-do list at the same time is never going to work.
I think that's what happens. I think our minds, what we're describing with the racing wagons, is that your mind doesn't do that. Your mind wants to kind of entertain all these things all at the same time, and you can direct your attention by saying, "Okay, I'm just going to do this one thing for the next half an hour, and then I'll come back to worrying. Then I'll come back to allowing the wagon trains to run. But for the next half hour," and you can fool yourself with that. I had my other son. He'd just get a bit miserable. He'd get a bit wound up, and he'd get a bit, kind of upset at things, and he'd start, as we call it, gringing. And I'd say to him, we'd be in the car, and I said, no, Harry, it's not gringing time yet. 2:00. 2:00 is gringing time. So it's only 10:30. Huh? Oh. And it would just interrupt it. Boys are so easy. My mother had 4 boys, and she said, boys are so easy. All you got to do is distract them. It's going, look over there. We're so simple. Squirrel.
So simple.
But it works. They're very simple people. But it works. It works because it directs our attention. It interrupts the pattern, interrupts that subconscious noise and too much going on, or, you feel like you've got to get all this done, you got to get it done too soon. First, do the one thing that you can do. I think the other things that go to the heart of being a good manager is going, okay, we've got a whole lot on. We either don't have the time, or it's too hard, or there's just too much. What are our options? And the first option is always ask for help, or go and find help to make that process work faster. And the other thing that I always think about in this context is changing either the scope of the job, reducing it to make it easier to do, changing the time frame, so give ourselves time, or changing the resources. So as a manager at work, we always have that option. Those are the 3 parts of the 3 corners of the triangle, if you like. How long, how much resource have we got, and how big is the job? So I think doing that is for ourselves first, but then for our team as well.
I think we've had the experience of, you and I are quite good at new ideas, you particularly so, and I come in second with some new ideas as well. And without realizing it, we can actually add stress to our own team, where we're, the thing we really want to get done this week is now this.
Yeah.
And every time one of the teams come to me and said, hey, love your new idea, but last week you asked me to do this one, and the week before you asked me to do that one, I can really quickly evaluate which of those is the priority.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, actually, you know what? That new idea actually just doesn't matter at all. So park it. Let's put it on the parking lot, and we'll come back to it later. The one that we talked about last week is still the priority, so let's do that. But I think I'm not certainly not unique in that, as a leader, as someone who can quickly prioritize really what is the most important thing. Where I fail and need to improve is adding more new ideas to the pile. But would certainly encourage any manager that's feeling overwhelmed with the amount to do, go and talk to your manager, your leader, and go, okay, here's the time we've got available, the triangle. Are we going to change time, scope, or resource around these things, which we're going to do? And if they're a half decent leader / manager, they'll be able to help prioritize and decide which of those levers we're going to change.
And I think that's right. I think we can very easily stress our teams out, especially if we're our poor team. They've got you as a driver and me as a pioneer, and God, what a combination! They're forever kind of, what's happening this week? So I feel for them, and we encourage them as managers should encourage their team to come back and say, where does this fit? I don't get it. Great idea. You should always say great idea. But where does this fit against, you said the opposite last week or whatever. So I think for managers, there are some good ways to reduce stress in your team. The first of those is to cut out the noise. And sometimes, you know, you and I recognize we're part of the noise. We can create noise for our teams by getting enthusiastic about the latest great idea. But actually simply reducing the kind of, you know, getting the best ideas and the ideas to work on and the priorities clear and let the other stuff go, you reduce the noise, which is a good analogy because you think about that noise in your head. The second one that's really important for anybody, introverts or extroverts, is to prioritize the human connection. We often don't understand this enough in the managing stress department, but actually getting people out of their heads and talking, just being with other people is another way of interrupting that subconscious, is another way of taking the temperature down a bit, allowing people just to shoot the breeze. You know, having, you know, those kind of, it's more difficult in a time when remote working is so global.
Yes.
But it's still really, really important to find ways for people to connect at a personal level. And I think the other one in terms of the team is to identify it early and address the issues. You know, when you observe that people are starting to get stressed, tackle it straight on. You seem to be feeling the stress, feeling the pressure. How can I help? And again, you know, we did that this morning, right? Where I observed one of our managers, I observed yesterday some of the language around the overwhelm and the no time. She didn't say I'm super stressed. It's not her style. But just the language she used indicated, okay, we need to have a conversation about this. And we, you know, raised it this morning and just went straight into, hey, you seem really stressed. What's going on? And for sure, that's exactly what she said. And she went through everything that was going on. So then we could have a conversation about how we could help, approach the decision making. Is this something that's a permanent problem? Is this a short-term thing? All those things. And I would hope that she left that meeting with a sense that, yeah, we're going to get through this piece.
You did. You could see the change in the body language after that discussion had taken place, that there was a, you know, as you started in this episode, you know, the jaw was less clenched, the shoulders had dropped, the breathing was better, you know, just because we'd had that conversation.
Yeah. She was laughing again and you know, all of those sorts of things. So it was, yeah. So stress doesn't need to be a killer. It just needs to be confronted early, and it's, you know, fundamental thing is just take down the noise level. All of those things that we've talked about are all about turning down the volume on the voices in our heads.
Indeed. And I love your definition around pressure versus stress.
Yeah.
Pressure can be a very healthy thing. Too much of it, when it tips over into stress, not so good. I think it's a good definition. And then most important thing, have some self-awareness of when your stressors or your stress signals are starting to play out. And then, you know, that very first one, start with breathing. It is such a powerful tool and so underrated. Start with some breathing.
Yeah. Start with
That's
breathing.
great.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Mike. That's some really good tips around managing stress, and it's a challenging time in the world for many people. There is plenty of conflict and challenge going on, which is well beyond what we're really talking about here, which is workplace challenge. But equally, there's some tough economic times out there for companies and individuals. And we empathize with the levels of pressure and stress that are out there. So hopefully these tips have been useful. And appreciate your contribution there, Mike. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Ryan. Always a pleasure.